Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Amy and I are very excited to have you here tonight. We are presenting via ISTE's EdTech Coaches PLN. So we are excited to get you some short and sweet PD. So before we start, I do just have a couple of quick things that I want to go over. This is your EdTech Coaches leadership team. So if you have anything at all that you would like to share, see more of, see less of as a PLN, please reach out to any one of us and we will try our best to make that happen for you. So again, this is your 2017-18 leadership team. My name is Katie Seamer. And we are thrilled to have the opportunity to serve all of the members of ISTE's EdTech Coaches PLN. There are many ways that you can connect with us throughout the year. We, of course, have our PLN homepage in the ISTE Connects area where we have a very lively discussion boards, people sharing ideas, asking questions. We have a very active community there. So if you are a member of ISTE, you can join any PLN for free, and we encourage you to go to that PLN area and participate and interact with some of our members there. And then, of course, we are on social media. Our Twitter name is @EdTechCoaches, and we have a lively discussion area using the hashtag #ETCoaches. So feel free to share what you're learning and what's going on in the webinar today. We also have a Google Plus group, a Voxer group, and we also have a Remind group to remind you about our Twitter chats that take place on the last Tuesday of the month at 1 and 8 p.m. So many different ways that you can connect with us. We do these monthly webinars. We have a book study every year with which information will be coming out in November about how to participate in our book study. We present at the conference every year. And like I already said, we have monthly Twitter chats. So we are a very, very lively PLN with many, many opportunities for EdTech coaches to connect and learn with one another. So we hope that you'll participate in some of those opportunities with us throughout the year. Now, the moment that you've been waiting for, the reason you're here, is for our EdTech Coaches webinar series. And we started this webinar series last year, where we do one monthly webinar or one webinar a month throughout the school year. And they went over really well. We model them after ISTE's PLN series webinars, where the content presentation is really just 30 minutes. And then the back half of the webinar is open for questions. But the idea is to get you some short and sweet PD and then send you on your way with taking a few good nuggets that you can take back with you to your schools. And so how we pick our presenters is actually from our playground presenters at the conference in the summer. So we look for some of the most timely presentations, some of the best presenters there, and we ask them to essentially present that playground presentation over again for these webinars. So whether or not you were able to go to the conference and you just weren't able to make it to see this presentation, or we know that a majority of our members aren't able to actually make it to ISTE's conference in the summer. So this is our way of essentially extending that conference opportunity throughout the year to connect you with other coaches and the awesome PD that takes place at the conference. So next month is November 14th, and it will be PD in Your PJs by Dana Bruns and Michelle Dirksen. And you can register at the link below, and I'll also share the link in the chat in just a moment. And for tonight's presentation, we have it will be, do you have a public relations hat? It's a must for EdTech coaches. I'm so excited to hear this presentation by Amy Johns tonight. She is the coordinator of instructional technology at Fayette County Public Schools. Her Twitter handle is at Amy's Musings. And Fayette County Public Schools is in Lexington, Kentucky. Her district is home to over 41,000 students, 67 schools and programs, and over 5,000 teachers, administrators, and support staff. Holy cow, Amy. She is in her 21st year as an educator, and most of that time has been spent in the role of an EdTech coach. She currently supervises Fayette's 5 district-wide EdTech coaches, and her office works to provide training and support to the teachers and administrators across the district. Amy is also a Level 2 Google Certified Educator. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Amy to take it away.
Thanks, Katie. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so everybody can see that. All right, so at ISTE this summer, in the playground series, I did this session on public relations hat. And so, Katie shared a little bit of my background in terms of our district size. We are a pretty large district, at least by Kentucky standards. We're the second largest in Kentucky. I know they're a lot larger than we are, but it feels overwhelming to us at times. Most of the districts in Kentucky have maybe 2,000 or 3,000 students, and that would be considered a large district even in our state. So we're a very rural state for the most part, but we do in Lexington have 67 schools and programs. We just opened our 6th high school this year. And so one of the struggles for us in our office at the district level is how to provide support for that many schools. We do have some schools that have their own EdTech coach. Most of those are at the middle or high school level, but a lot of those folks don't get to do a whole lot of coaching. They end up doing a whole lot of tech support. And then in our elementary school, 1 out of 36 of our elementary schools has an EdTech coach. And so the 5 folks in my office are trying to provide support to all of our schools in our district. And so in thinking about the different hats that EdTech coaches wear, when I applied to be part of the playground this summer, what really stuck out to me was some of the battles that we face that I just term public relations or branding, because honestly, even though there are a few of us in lots of schools, we're constantly trying to make sure that schools know that we are available and what it is that we can help teachers and students do to improve instruction. And so this session really just kind of takes a look at some of the different things that we've done that have been successful for our small group, figuring out how to spread ourselves across that many schools and how to kind of get the word out, some successes that we've had more recently. And so what I'm sharing with you is actually a Google Sites, and Katie is going to share that link, I think, at the end so that you can have all this information. But this is what I used during the playground rather than a presentation. So we're going to kind of just click through a little bit of this, and then you'll have access to everything of interest when we're finished. And so, again, just talking about, that public relations hat. And so I'm not going to show this video, but it's, I think, kind of a clever story around personal branding. And if you really think about it, I think as EdTech coaches, we have to spend a lot of time kind of crafting that brand. And so that was one of the first things that I talked about this summer, is just that idea of what a brand is. And so we really started getting intentional about our branding a couple of years ago, and started getting a little bit playful. And so some different things that we have done in our department, we actually still call ourselves technology resource teachers, TRTs. So it's kind of a throwback from several years ago. There are a lot of different names for folks in our field around our state even. But so for our group, we have started creating our brand, and Bitmojis, of course, are always a popular tool. And so one of the folks on our team actually last year had all of us send him one of our Bitmojis and kind of created this graphic that we have used in several of our things, but just to kind of be playful and fun. We find that we attract more teachers, more attention, when we can keep things kind of light and not as stressful. I think a lot of our teachers get stressed just thinking about how to integrate technology or what to do with technology. But the thing that we started doing a couple of years ago was really creating a brand and being intentional and consistent with our messaging. And so we came up with a logo for our office. Thankfully, one of the folks in our office, her brother is a graphic designer, but came up with this logo that we've been using pretty much everywhere. And so we try to use that to brand, and it has really helped, I think, get our office some attention and some recognition, not from trying to puff ourselves up or anything, but just from the standpoint of folks realizing what we are and to differentiate ourselves from the technical support side of our house, because we are part of the technology department, which is a great thing in our district that we're organized that way. but to help folks differentiate between technical support and instructional technology support. And so we have this logo, and we've kind of put it everywhere. We've put it on shirts. So here's our team in our shirts. We'd like to dream that we're at the beach. There are no beaches in Kentucky. We're a landlocked state, but we'd like to dream that we're all there. We talk about all the time hosting a conference on a cruise, but so far that hasn't happened. But we use that, pictures and things like that. We also created business cards with that logo on it. So this is just a screenshot of the front of my business card. On the back has, information. Not that I use business cards a whole lot when we're in a digital world, but occasionally folks still want those. We also have a separate email account that we created specifically for our department. So when we need to send out mass communications or register for accounts or advertise events or things that we want to come from our department as a whole, we can send those out through our department email account. And then we've also created a blog, and we're going to look at that in just a little bit, that we use as well to update sites. And so each of the individuals in our department may have their own spaces that they use for different things that they promote, but we felt like it was really important that we had a unified place for our department as a whole. The way that we are currently serving our schools is that we're doing that by feeder pattern. So for the 5 people that work in my department, each of those has a set of about 12 or 13 schools that are elementary, middle, and high. And so they serve those. With the opening of our 6th high school this year, we actually now have 6 feeder patterns, but we have not yet gotten that 6th TRT or EdTech coach. So we're still kind of hanging out for that and hoping for that. But that's a way that we have kind of moved to be more personalized, even though they're not given enough time really with that many schools to be on a set schedule in those buildings. It's a way that they can more personally interact and start being a face to the teachers in that school, or a name to the teachers in that school, rather than just somebody at central office that might be able to provide help. The other thing that kind of went along with creating our brand that we did at about the same time was we also created a Twitter account, and we share this account, so everyone in our office has access to this account. And they can't, which is great, because then it doesn't fall to any one person to be responsible for doing all of those tweets. And we found that this is really starting to grow. I'm going to click over here for just a minute to the actual Twitter page. So we use this site to send out kudos, to take pictures of things that are going on in schools, to congratulate teachers, to promote our newsletter, which is Textnack, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so I found that this has been a really good tool for us to be able to individually promote, and as a department promote some of the things that are going on. So in this image here, actually, this is from a recent STLP meeting that we had. STLP is a program unique to Kentucky. It's called the Student Technology Leadership Program, and it's a statewide initiative, but in our district we strive to have a program in every school. Most of the time they run as after school clubs, but basically technology clubs for kids. And so lots and lots of different activities and things that they can do. We have a statewide competition that last year had almost 10,000 people at it. We did that at the University of Kentucky, where they play basketball, which is a big deal to a lot of our kids to get to come and be at Rupp Arena. And there's a part of that that is like a showcase, like a science fair almost, where they come and compete, but then lots of individual events. And so this particular image was a training day that we did for coordinators, club coaches, so to speak, from around the state, to let them kind of try out some of the different competitions and projects and see some different tools. And so just being able to promote things like that, training that we're doing, I think has been a really powerful, and it starts out slow. And so the thing about branding and kind of building that that space is that it's not going to be an overnight thing, but we have been very intentional once we started with the logo and trying to put that in every place that we're sending anything out, putting it, creating the Twitter account and slowly growing followers and building that up, that we found over the course of a couple of years that it started to really be successful. The other thing for us, beyond just creating our brand, is this idea of getting noticed. And, you might think that with as many programs as we have and students that we have, that it would be easy to stay busy. which we do stay busy, but oftentimes we find that we're still running into schools and teachers and folks who have no idea of the services that we can provide. And so trying to find ways with a staff of only 5, there was a point in time several years ago that we had many more EdTech coaches in our district, almost enough to have 1 for every 2 schools. And now we're back down to only 5 to service the district. So trying to find ways that we can make that personal connection when we can't really be in a building on a consistent basis. And so one of the things that has been really successful for us is a newsletter that we started about a year and a half ago, or well, not quite a year ago, I guess. And we call it Textnacks. And the tool that we use for Textnacks is S'more. And we arrived at that after trial and error of several different tools. But the thing that was really important about Textnacks, we had actually done a district e-newsletter for many, many years. It had been a blog, it had several different forms, but we had been doing that for probably 10 years. And it was emailed to teachers, to every staff member in the district. But we really had no idea whether or not anybody was looking at it, whether it was having any impact. And it got kind of long in the tooth, to be honest. And so we decided that maybe that wasn't the most effective route any longer, that we needed to go to our audience and ask them what they wanted or what they felt would be the most beneficial. So we did a survey, and we didn't send it out to everybody in the district, but to some key stakeholders, folks that we knew that would give us some honest feedback. And we asked them what types of information they would like to see if we did a newsletter or if they wanted something else. And so in a nutshell, the feedback that we got back from folks was that they wanted really short snippets of information. And we didn't want to go to the point of just being a list of cool tools, which part of that is in there. But what we heard from our teachers were that they were so overwhelmed with so much information that they needed what we term little snacks, just little bits and bites of information that they could see. And then what that would do for us is that it would serve as a reminder to them that if they had a question about the things they were seeing in Textnack, then they would have contact information for who they could reach out to. So on the website that I showed this summer were a couple examples of Textnacks, and our byline for that was a bite-sized treat to transform learning. And we found that these have been pretty popular. So we do still send out an email to let folks know when a new Textnack is available, but it literally is nothing but a link and a very brief description, if even that. And so we send those out about every 3 weeks is the schedule that we're on currently. And after trying several different tools, we tried Sway, we did a Google Slide for one, we did a TAC for one, which TAC is now going away. Tried several different things, but we ultimately decided that S'more was the platform that was going to work the best for us. One kind of exciting perk for us that we didn't even know we were in the running for was last spring in March, we were actually recognized as a top 50 must-read IT blog of 2017. And it really is because of the Textnack. So I mentioned earlier that we have our own blog. I'll flip over here for just a minute. So this was the blog, but this is really, even though we do some other blog posts, primarily we're using it to also post our Textnacks. And that was really what was gaining the attention for us, was posting this information on our blog. And then we also use it as a resource for some of our other teachers and technology coordinators and groups in the district, and information for them. But it was, kind of fun to see out of the blue that we had been recognized for really what was kind of a baby in its infancy at that point with Textnacks. We'd only done 4 or 5 at that point, but it was obviously gaining some traction. One of the things that it did, it helped us connect with schools. And so let me skip around just a little bit. S'more is one of the tools in our toolkit that we'll talk about in a moment. But one of the things that we really liked about S'more, so this is the Textnack that actually we put together right after our team got back from ISTE this summer. And S'more just provides, if you haven't used it, and probably a lot of you have, just a really clean interface. It is very quick to put together. And the way that we manage that is with our team of 6, myself included, we just keep a running Google Doc of tech bites or snacks, kind of miniature little articles. We try to include videos and keep the text really to a minimum as much as possible. If there's something that needs a really long explanation or more directions, then that's typically a link out to another document rather than putting that in the Textnack itself. And so we just keep a running document, and then one of the folks on our team will just pull different pieces for each Textnacks that we want to send out. So this is the one that we put together based on some things that we saw that we thought would be of interest to our teachers when we were at ISTE. And one of the primary reasons that we really like SMORE, and I'm going to click over to kind of the inside view for a minute with Textnacks, is that it gives you a little bit in the way of analytics to see who is viewing. And so it blows my mind, honestly, that this particular Textnack has been visited almost 3,500 times. And if we want to dig in just a little bit, in case you haven't seen this side of SMORE, you can actually get a visual of where all of those hits are coming from. And if you look on the map, obviously a lot of those are coming from within our district, but there are a whole lot, and I attribute that to having been an ISTE-related Textnack as well. But that we're getting views all over the world is pretty amazing to us. Obviously, our primary audience is our teachers, but it is motivating to know that you're doing work that that some folks elsewhere are also finding beneficial. But when we dig in and look at some of these analytics, we do see that most of our visitors are coming from our particular area. This one may be a little bit different just because it was in the summer. But you can click into these pins and start seeing the number of teachers from different areas. So these are some areas around Lexington. So 2,600 visitors from Lexington out of the 3,500. I consider that a win, that we're getting that much traffic from our teachers. That is definitely way more than what we had ever gotten with our more traditional kind of email/blog newsletter. All right. So that's been a big tool in our toolkit that we've added just recently. I mentioned before that our team is connected to feeder patterns. And so when we send out the SMORE every 3 weeks, we do actually send an email reminder. We tweet it out as well across a couple different channels. We use our individual Twitter accounts and also our Office of Instructional Technology Twitter account to announce that that SMORE has been released or that Textnack has been released. But each of our EdTech coaches will actually email directly from their email account their schools. And so this gives them a method to kind of stay in the memory of teachers in the individual schools, to remind them when they send out this SMORE that they exist. And very often teachers will reply to that, maybe not about anything in the actual Textnack, but that reminds them that there's somebody here that can come out and help them with questions that they have or whatever it may be. So that has definitely been beneficial for us. Another thing that we have done in our district for quite a while that is a little bit unique, at least in our state. I know every state is different in terms of funding, but we actually also work with funds that we get from the state that we are able in our district to pretty much pass on directly to schools. And we do that in the form of a grant. And so all of our schools are on a 3-year cycle for what we kind of call an internal grant, that we require the teachers, that we require the teachers to, or the schools to give us a plan for what they're going to do. And so we've really been pushing in on that. A lot of schools, probably like many of yours, are purchasing lots and lots of Chromebooks. And although we are not a one-to-one district yet, we are rapidly approaching that just because of the number of Chromebooks that we are seeing our schools purchase, in addition to what we're able to provide through technology funds. But through that process, I go out along with the EdTech coach from my office that's assigned to a particular school, and we meet with principals and talk about what their plans are for those technology dollars and how they're going to use those devices, if they're, especially most of them are purchasing Chromebooks, and really pushing in on the training piece. And so we're really advocating for training times during PLC and team meetings during the day, because we all know that after school PD is okay, but not great. Most teachers are done by the time they get to the end of the day, and there's nothing better than training 40 teachers that are tired and grouchy in a faculty meeting. So we found that this has really helped us kind of get a foot in the door and be a lot more intentional with schools by going through this route, never hurt. Principals find it a little bit harder to say no when you've got some dollars that you're offering them when you want to come in and do some training. So that has helped. And another thing that we have tried in our district that we've had great success with is working with cohorts to help folks get level 1 or level 2 Google Education certification. In our state, we're actually a Microsoft state, but we're also a Google almost state. And so in our district, we actually have access to Office 365 and G Suite. And in our district, we haven't dictated one over the other. But we definitely are seeing a whole lot of movement toward using the Google tools because they just seem to be a lot more educator and student friendly. And teachers are more willing to kind of jump in with the Google tools that are available to them. And so for the school-based TRTs or EdTech coaches that we have in the last year and a half, we have met with them during the day because they have a little bit of release time during the day and worked with them in cohorts and actually worked together through the level 1, level 2 certification. And so we had probably about 25 people that went through that certification. And more recently, even since I was at ISTE this summer, we've actually started working with administrators and building leadership, both at the school and the district level. So we're actually right now, we've just started a leadership cohort to work on level 1 certification, which I'm really excited about. And we've got about 25 building leaders that are doing that. Some of those are principals, associate principals, instructional coaches, different roles. And we're doing kind of a blended model we have Canvas as a LMS in our district, and so we're creating an online course that we are blending with some face-to-face training and prepping that group so that they'll be able to take their certification exam in December and purchasing those vouchers, those test vouchers, just to encourage folks to do that. So that has been another very powerful tool for us. People get really excited about earning those certifications and kind of working through that. And I think for our leaders, I'm very excited to see them embracing that because I think that's going to be really key in teachers, some of our reluctant teachers kind of getting on board when they see that their principals are using those tools, that I think there's a little bit more emphasis on them using those tools as well. But talking about tools, so some of the other tools in our toolkit, SMORE obviously has been a big one for us. And we have just purchased one license that we're using collectively for our Textnacks. G Suite, as I mentioned, no big surprise there, although we do have Office 365, so we have both of those sets of tools at our disposal. And Team Drives has definitely been a game changer starting last summer for folks. But just some other quick tools. We all know there are a million different things out there, but these are some of our favorites. Canva, and I'm sure you all probably all use these tools, but we love Canva for creating some of those graphics that we need, as well as Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark was actually one of the Spark tools, was one of the things that we also tried doing our newsletter with for one of our first editions last year before we decided to standardize on SMORE. Of course, the Bitmoji. You have to have Bitmojis to add a little fun. And then one of my personal favorites, which you may not be as familiar with, is Calendly. And this is a phenomenal tool that will integrate with Office 365 calendars or G Suite calendars, and I think probably some others as well, that will allow you basically to create a link that you can send out to folks and let them schedule time with you. And I think that could really be a huge tool for EdTech coaches when you're trying to, number one, cut down on the volume of email back and forth. Well, can you come on this day at this time? Well, no. You come next week on Tuesday at 3? No. It will let you, with the free version, you can set up one time slot. So it could be a 30-minute time slot or hour time slot, whatever you want, and just send out that link. And as long as you keep your calendar up to date, which I live and die by my calendar, then that site will look at the calendar and you can put some requirements in place, like there has to be 30 minutes before the appointment, 30 minutes after, or whatever you may need. And folks can just schedule. And so most recently, I've been using that to schedule principal meetings. I can send them that link. They will choose their own time slot based on my availability. And when they select it, it automatically goes on my calendar, and then sends me an email notification that it's there. So it's a really, really wonderful tool. I think it's fairly inexpensive, and there's probably an education version as well that if you need additional types, you can change them. If you wanted to have multiple different, a 15-minute slot and a 30-minute slot and an hour-long slot or whatever, then a paid subscription will allow you to have more than one. But those are some tools that we have found to be really helpful. And then, of course, HyperDocs and Sway were a couple other things as well. And I did put, although I haven't, this is not really a promotion, but I did mention Fiverr.com. If you are looking for help with creating a brand, although we didn't have to do that because we had some in-house folks that could help us with that. But Fiverr.com might be an option for you. They have freelance services that some of those start at $5, where you can basically choose someone from their site to create a brand for you. So if you're looking for something like that, that might be an option. And then just real quickly, the last thing to hit, the kind of things that we do to get noticed and to kind of stand out are some events that we host in our district, and some different things in addition to just the normal kind of day-to-day work of working out in schools and doing training. So throughout the year, we try to host or promote several different events. Hour of Code obviously is a big one that you're probably familiar with. We've done some different things around that to try to promote teachers to participate. One of those for the last couple of years is that we have actually had our own kind of prizes for teachers that participate. And so we require them to register for us if they're with us, in addition to the Hour of Code website, if they plan to do activities. And then following the Hour of Code week, or when they've done those activities, to send us a picture and a brief description of what they did. And we put those submissions in for a drawing, one elementary, one middle, and one high school teacher. And they went up to $500 worth of technology of their choice for their classroom. And so I actually was pretty surprised at the number of teachers that participated. And we had some great things. It's also been a great way to find some hidden gems, teachers that are doing great things that maybe we wouldn't have known otherwise. I know the first year that we did it, we had an English high school teacher who ended up having students program in Scratch to create some things that were English related to, I think they were studying poetry or something at the time, but I was really just very surprised. It's not what I would have expected from some of our teachers. So some great things going on there. I mentioned our STLP, our Student Technology Leadership Program. And so that is a huge statewide event, but we host a district-wide event prior to the statewide championship. And at our district-wide event, we ask all of our schools to come and basically just do a showcase of the technology and things that they have going on, the projects they've been working on. And we also host a large robotics competition with RCX, Lego Robotics as well. And so that's a big deal. And then obviously with the state competition, over 9,000 students were there last year from around the state. So always a big day. Scratch Day is also something that we had started doing. We hosted the first one in 2016, and we did another one this past May. And so this is really just a fun morning. We do it on Saturday morning and encourage, primarily it's elementary students that come, although we open it to anybody. But we ask families to come. And so it's a family event. Students, it's not a drop off your kid and we're going to entertain them for 3 hours. It's come with your kid and see what they can do. And so we put out lots of different stations and activities. We had community partners come in and set up and help run different stations. Everything was hands-on, robots and makey-makeys and coding and Scratch. So it's just a really fun day to get folks thinking a little bit differently about some of the things that they could be doing. And then we also host our own conference, and we've been doing that for quite some time. It's called the Innovations for Learning Conference, and we do that typically in early June. In Kentucky, we have snow sometimes, and sometimes we don't. And if you live up north, you're probably laughing at us. And if you live further south, then you understand snow can be quite a problem. So we do tend to get out of school if we have very much snow at all. So depending on how many snow days we have, last year we had one, so it was a very light year. But we have missed as much as 2 or 3 weeks, and we have some districts in our state that will miss more than a month of school, depending on the weather. But so depending on snow days, will be about a week after school lets out. So we usually schedule that in March. But we have run that conference for the last several years, usually about 600 presenters. We open it to our district first, and then we open it up statewide. It's completely free. We put it all on in-house and just try to encourage and give teachers an opportunity to get some of that PD in the summer without having to worry about incurring a cost or getting PD funds from their school. So I think with that, it's been about 30 minutes. I'll stop and see, Katie, if we have questions.
Okay, we do. Let me take myself off mute and find my questions here. Thank you so much, Amy. So many great ideas. Lots of good ideas starting to bounce around in the chat. So keep those ideas and questions coming, guys. Let's see. Our first question we had was from Aaron, and he asked, how does a teacher schedule a meeting with one of your tech coaches? And I think you kind of touched on it later with one of those apps you shared, but if you want to talk about that for just a second.
Sure. So Calendly would be a great way to do that. I don't know that all of my folks are using that method right now. So typically, a couple different things. If we are working directly with the school through PLCs, we will schedule out days, typically with the principal, for when those are going to occur. And then anything beyond that, they would just email the tech coach that's assigned to their school, or any of them, it doesn't matter. If they email somebody else that they happen to have worked with or attended a workshop with or something, then we'll pass them around until we get to the right person. But typically they would just email and set up a time that works for them. But Calendly, I think, would be a great tool to use. It kind of just depends on your schedule and how available you are.
Great, thank you. And then next question we had, Leslie asked, with your joint office Twitter account, do you all also maintain individual Twitter accounts? And can you give anyone, if you do that, which I think it kind of sounded like you all did, if you do that, can you give everybody kind of some tips on how you all go about kind of jointly managing that office Twitter account and your own personal accounts, if that's the case?
Sure. Yes, we do. So we all have our own individual accounts, and then we have the one office account. Honestly, there are a couple of folks on my team that are a little bit, I won't say more social media savvy, but are just more into Twitter and more mindful of that. And so they're really good. There are probably about 3 of us that primarily tweet on behalf of the department. And so if we're doing it's kind of a toss-up, honestly. A lot of times I will tweet, or if we're doing an event or something like that, that we want to promote our office as a whole, then we'll tweet out from that account. Or even a lot of times when they're out in schools working with teachers or doing trainings, then we'll tweet out from our office account and then maybe retweet it from our personal accounts if we want to do that, or vice versa. Sometimes we'll tweet from our personal account and then retweet from the department or the office account. So we may be oversaturating a little bit, but I do think we also have some different followers on those different accounts. And so we just try to be mindful. Obviously, I don't think you want 15 people all tweeting from the same department account. So really, there's probably only about 3 of us that are actively doing that. And there are times, usually if we're all at an event together, that we're kind of checking before we tweet out to make sure that that exact thing hasn't already been said just a minute ago by somebody else on the team. Most of us do that from our phones when we're out and about, so it's real easy in the Twitter app, at least on iOS, to switch between accounts. And so it makes it nice to be able to very quickly go into the department account and still have my personal account open so I can jump in between.
Great tips there, and I'll just kind of add a little bit onto that too. I know those of you who also use TweetDeck makes it really easy to manage multiple accounts. And when you go to retweet something or send something, you can choose which account you want to do that from. I know a couple of us, Greg certainly handles, I would say, about 99.9% of the EdTech coaches Twitter information and everything, but a couple of us do have access to that if we ever need to go in and help him manage our PLN Twitter account too. So TweetDeck, if you are at a computer, is a great option as well.
Yeah, I would agree,
And
Katie. I actually have a Twitter chat coming up right after this that I helped do for the state, and I use TweetDeck for that. One of the things that I really like about TweetDeck is the ability to schedule tweets, which would
yes,
probably be a nice way to manage if you wanted to make sure that you had things going on coming out of your Twitter account on a regular basis, is to schedule those through TweetDeck. So it's not a matter of having to remember if somebody has tweeted anything in the last couple of days or if anything like that's going on. So that is a really nice feature of TweetDeck.
yes, great point. And then Evan asked, this is our last question, and there was definitely some conversation going back and forth in the chat here. Are there any teachers using Chromebooks as their primary device in your district?
That is a great question, and one that we have had come up several times. So we have not replaced teacher workstations or whatever option they may have in schools. It differs a little bit school to school with Chromebooks, but we definitely have some schools that have given teachers Chromebooks to try to push them in that direction. It was a big debate for us. Like I said, we just opened our 6th high school, and it is our most technologically savvy school in terms of what we've been able to put in there. That school actually is one-to-one with Chromebooks. And one of the things that we did different in that school is that we did not install mounted projectors. So we did interactive flat panels in that building, and everything is mobile. And so, and the design of the building is such that teachers aren't necessarily assigned to a classroom. It's more the college model where they have a desk, workspace somewhere, and they potentially could be in different rooms for different periods depending on the need. There's some flexible sizing and those things. So teachers were not given desktop stations. They were given mobile devices, and there was a great debate for quite a while on whether or not we could just give teachers Chromebooks rather than a full Windows PC. We're a Windows district. And ultimately, we decided to go ahead and give them the Windows PC because there are some things that aren't just quite there for the Chromebooks. We do have folks that will use them for the vast majority of their workflow, but we haven't felt yet that we could go all in with just giving teachers Chromebooks. I don't think we're far away from that, but we haven't done it yet.
Great, thank you for adding that little bit of information too. I'm gonna flip back over to presenting my screen. Guys, if anyone who's still watching has any more questions, please still throw them out in the chat. We technically have another 18 minutes that Amy and I will be here to help answer those questions. But up on the screen now, you should be seeing, and I also just shared it in the chat, a link to webinar feedback, which will also, that's how you can get a contact hour certificate generated for you. So if you are looking to get that contact hour, you just go to that link, fill out the feedback, and then you can opt in by adding your name and email address. So it will generate that certificate and send it on over to you. I will, while we're kind of waiting to see if any more questions roll in here in the chat, this will be archived on YouTube as soon as we're finished. It'll be saved. And then I will also be archiving the chat. So I'll share a link to Amy's website one more time to make sure that everybody gets that. But we will also be emailing out a link to the video and then archiving this chat in a Google Doc and pasting it as a comment in the video or comments below the video on YouTube. So everyone will have access to that both in your email if you registered, and then also if you go back to watch the archived version. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this Wednesday evening. And Amy, a very special thank you to you for presenting for us and giving us tons of good idea. I absolutely love the logos that you all have. So my brain is turning a little bit myself. So thank you so much. And if everyone would join us on November 14th as we talk about PD in your PJs with Dana Bruns and Michelle Dirksen, that would be wonderful. So I'll wait just another minute. But if there are no more questions that anyone wants to share in the chat, then we are finished for the evening.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I hope folks found something that was helpful.